Welcome to Wild Soul Gathering. I'm Dr. Sandra Marie, and I'll be your host for this episode of Happy Hour for the Spiritually Curious. Hello to all you wild souls out there. I want to send a special thank you to each and every one of you for taking time out of your day to join and listen to our guests as we discuss the many aspects of spirituality. To stay updated on our latest releases, please follow us, share with friends who may be interested, and if you feel so moved, a kind rating and review is always appreciated. In the tradition of happy hour, cheers to some new insights, peace, revitalization, and perhaps an aha moment that may change your life. Welcome to Happy Hour for the Spiritually Curious. I'm Dr. Sandra Marie. Today we have with us the Reverend Sallyknuckles. In addition to helping people bridge from organized/traditional types of religions to more metaphysical practices, Sally has a very powerful story to share with us involving her brother's suicide, which put her on a painful path that changed everything, leading her unexpectedly to some of her greatest accomplishments. Welcome to the show, Sally.
Thank you.
Before we get into your story, which is truly quite powerful, can you talk a little bit about what bridging from traditional religion to a more metaphysical practice might look like?
Yes, I experienced it myself, and I found it very necessary to introduce people to a new way of thinking, or perhaps know that other people were thinking the same way that they are thinking. I was always on a quest to talk to the other side. I experienced a lot of different mediums and found one that really, Reverend Reed Brown, that connected me with my deceased brother and father. Through that, there came a point where I wanted to learn more about his religion, his philosophy. It was in a typical church. When I walked into the metaphysical church, it was laid out like the church I grew up in, which gave me a bit of trepidation at the beginning. It was a liturgical service, the same pomp and circumstance that was in my traditional church. Then it became metaphysical. Not only was it very liberating, especially as a woman, because God was not a he. I was included in the energy of this energy they call God. It allowed me the freedom to think like I wanted to think. There wasn't, this is our way of thinking and that's it. So I went to church. I hadn't been in a church, organized religious church, in years. And I felt very comfortable because we sang out of the hymn book, hymns I knew. Then we went into the service. Then after the service, we had messages. We talked to our loved ones on the other side. I would have gone in thinking I would see people dressed as gurus and gypsies. Nothing wrong with that. It is just not my cup of tea in a Sunday church. That's my fundamental upbringing. So I was comfortable accepting the feeling of what the metaphysical church gave me. In that comfort, I grew, I expanded, I became a medium because the very comfort I felt receiving the message. My mission is, for those who aren't introduced to this metaphysical life, is to bring them in with something they know and feel comfortable with, and then let them see the message is as comfortable as the place it's given. So now I may dress more like a guru, and I deal with people who've been in the philosophy for a while, but coming into it, it was comfortable and felt right.
Wow. Okay. So you just sort of happened into it then?
Yeah, looking for messages from the other side. That was what I was seeking. And I thought that wasn't real either. So through this one philosophy, I found complete truth for myself.
Nice. So I have two questions, and I'm not sure which order that you want to answer them in. I know that you are a medium and that you work in that energy. You have a pretty intense story on how that came into your life, or I should say how you came into accepting that with your brother and a family member. And then the other part of that is, how did you move from finding a new practice that really was feeding your soul and your soul path to becoming a reverend? And I'm not sure if the two stories intertwine or if they're going to be separate.
I think they intertwine. Coming into the truth, I guess I've always been a seeker, not knowing to call it that, but looking for something that I felt whole with. And through what I went through with my family, I couldn't find truth, and I didn't want the God that I've been introduced to in my Baptist church. It didn't help me through my brother's suicide and my father's death. After his suicide, and I'll set this up a little bit because my brother has allowed me to use this as a teaching tool. My brother was schizophrenic, committed suicide, age 24, a typical case of schizophrenia. The backstory to this is I've had two uncles that were schizophrenic and had lobotomies, so my brother had no illusions what his life would be like. He was a psychology major. He knew it. There's no accident both he and I went into psychology. When he committed suicide, I was the one who directly had to deal with it. And my religious philosophy fell apart because I could not believe a God who put us here, allowed us to evolve, that it or she, it was a he at that time, would allow this to happen to this lovely young man who was a good kid, a good man, just graduated from college. And so I spent years acting out. Nothing could fill the hole within me, that deep place where life didn't make any sense, and a lot of acting out, a lot of anger. So when I walked into that church and my brother was given back to me by a medium, and I knew it was him, there was no questioning it. I had to follow this path. And the interesting thing about metaphysics is especially as a medium, when we do this work, people will get into it, they'll be happy, they'll be so glad that they found their loved ones. And then there's a point where you either want to know more or that's enough. It wasn't enough for me. I wanted to know how this happened, why the whole world wasn't connecting to their loved ones. There's so much grief. And I had to find out how they did it. After believing the church was wired, they were collecting information on me, and that they were using this information when me from North Carolina went to the D.C. area to see this medium and keeping files on me, which is ridiculous. With all the people that we work with, it just couldn't happen that way. So I found some truth, and that evolved. Been doing this over 25 years. That evolved into how it's done. That got me into quantum physics. I had to explain it. Then the natural progression, if you seek in this philosophy, is to give to others. I had no idea of being a medium, didn't want it, wouldn't want that kind of responsibility with people, but I was called to it, and I understand what that means. I never understood being called to something. The more I tried to retreat, the more I was asked to serve within the church setting. When Reverend Brown believed in me and allowed me the honor of working with him, I thought, gosh, I must have something here. So it is, and I'm teach mediumship, and it's a natural progression out of seeking. And then if it's your truth, if it resonates with you and you want this spirit communication, then spirit knows that truth. You raise your vibration to spirit's vibration, you connect with that truth, and they work with you. It's not just like that, but it is. It truly is, if your heart and your mind's in the right place. And the natural progression is to give to others, to give them the opportunity to see that this is a valid way to live your life, connecting with those who have transitioned. I hope I answered your question.
You certainly did. I know that you said that you're teaching mediumship. I think that you have classes twice a month, and I'm sort of curious, how do you teach someone to be a medium? You have a Facebook page, I believe, that you help manage with some other people called Spiritual Activism. When I went on it, I was really impressed with the number of different offerings and the variety of people that were on it. And you had a lot of live sessions as well as things that people can sign up for and contribute financially. So if I signed up for a mediumship class, what might that look like for me?
It's like a pyramid. You start at the bottom and build a good base. The first thing we do is always do a prayer of protection, state an intention, always give an outline of what's going on. If there's someone new joining us, I'll give a brief review concerning specifically what we're working on that night, in that you need an encyclopedia of symbols. Start paying attention what things mean to you. For example, red roses always meant love to me. Most people can identify with that. You see roses on Valentine's Day. It's kind of a international symbol, but it only matters if that's what it means to you. So if spirit gives me an image, if in my third eye I see red roses while I'm in your energy, I think, wow, you are loved. And then that vibe connects with yours. And then what does it mean to you? It means love to me. It means love to you. Then I feel if it's romantic love, if it's parental love. But what I tell the student is pay attention to the symbols in your life, the things like, do you see a number a lot? What does that number mean to you? Most people already have these symbols in their head without really knowing that they've built up an identity with it. I mentioned the symbols. We do a meditation or a grounding exercise to get us to open up to spirit. We invite spirit in, those with only our highest good in mind, that up the frequency and pay attention. It's a gentle watching of what you're seeing and reacting to. And I was worried I couldn't do it on Zoom. My classes are all on Zoom, but you're in a frequency already. When you lock in to this, I believe spirit has an easier way of connecting with us because we're already communicating via frequencies. It's a lot of gentle paying attention. The advanced students are very good with the new students, and we love getting somebody new to read for them, to give messages, because it's a way to hone our skills to see if we connect with someone we don't know. But the first things would be teaching you to pay attention to everything around you, opening your mind, quietening that babbling voice that is going on incessantly. Pay attention to what symbols come in your head. Learn to read what your mind is telling you, because it all takes place in your head.
And so it's like a telepathic communication.
Spirit will use anything spirit can to get the message to us. I'm a very visual person, so I see visuals in my third eye, in my what we call our memory, our consciousness. They give me visuals. Some people get audio louder than they would receive visions. Some people have to pay attention to what's in the room, or if you're looking out a window, I look right out of the window at my little pond out in our yard, and the birds come in and tell me all kinds of things. So you learn to pay attention to everything around you, and spirit will use that. It all comes from spirit. There is psychic abilities, that's one thing. Communication with spirit is another, but your psychic abilities help you in that spiritual communication because spirit will use it.
Well, that makes sense. So it's just like it's very unique for each unique individual, although there's a lot of common threads that come through it. I myself am starting to receive more, I'll say receive messages. I've been receiving messages all along. It's exactly what you said. I'm starting to pay attention to some of them. I will say some messages that I've received have truly just been a massive kick in the ass because I wasn't listening to the other messages, but it does come in a multitude of different ways, which is interesting to me. The first time I'll say I heard a voice, I was, concerned about that because I have worked in behavioral health in the past. So I had my own issues about what that could possibly mean and was not real comfortable talking about it. And then as I've had it happen more, it's very clear to me. It's a type of communication, and I'm sure that there is a label to what it is and how you get it.
Right.
Let's move on to the page that you are a participant in managing that. It's on Facebook. It's called Spiritual Activism. Would you talk a little bit about that and some of the offerings and maybe how that all came about? I was super impressed with the different offerings and was actually disappointed in myself. I had planned to be on there for the New Year's and participate in that New Year's ceremony, but as life had it, it didn't happen.
Well, I appreciate you wanting to join us. I have a partner, Marina Shakur-Haber. We became friends in the Palm Beach Metaphysical Church where I live, and I noticed her right when I was in the pulpit. I worked as a guest minister and did classes there. So when I was in the pulpit, I noticed this bright and shining light, and it was her. And when you speak in front of people like that, you want to be fed by positive energy, not someone scowling or yawning. And she was just a bright light. So I zeroed right into her, and it was such a high service because I was surfing on her energy. And afterwards we talked, we became friends. COVID happened, the church folded. We knew that community needed something. It was like a light switch had turned off for our church community. One day we were talking, and I said, let's do something on Zoom. Of course, we knew Zoom was big. She said, okay. And I said, I had a book and I had pages of things to consider and talk about. And I said, when do you want to do it? She said, what about Sunday, which was 3 days away? And I thought a minute. I thought, okay, why not? And we jumped on. We have every Sunday at 12:15, a different speaker every Sunday. Marina and I and Reverend Diane Reese participate every month, and then there's 2 other Sundays or 1 other Sunday to fill. We fill it from the metaphysical community through people we know who have known people, like the connection you and I have. Just a beautiful networking all over the world. We've had from Dubai, from Ireland, from Germany, and I feel we've created this grid, and you can plug into it anytime energetically, but every Sunday. And we really believe we're helping save the planet. We're keeping the light going, and we're extending it, and those people we extend it even further. We've been on every Sunday since beginning COVID.
That's beautiful. Absolutely. You're making a difference with the world, especially as we're going through this intense change right now, and we're sending our energy. I'm excited because we actively get to be a part of it. So when we talk about connecting and awakening to things, one of the ahas I've had with a medium that I've worked with in the past, and it's when I get into working with mediums, it's interesting because everyone sort of does it a little bit different in their abilities and their skills and how they increase their vibration to match that of spirit. Because some people, One of the ladies that I met and I worked with, she would have, it was a group kind of situation. We all had to sing, which can be scary if you've ever heard me sing. But basically what we were trying to do was increase the vibration in the room using the vocals of song to help bring in the angelic beings. And I thought that was pretty cool. That being said, most of my life, I would say that people live their lives in fear, and fear is what drives them as human beings. Because we live our lives fearing death, that fear of death interferes with us being able to live our lives. And for me, when I first met with a medium, it was obvious to me because I'm a big doubting Thomas. Is this all hocus pocus? Clearly he gave me information that there's no way in hell he could have known that. So it gave me pause to think this was real. And at the end of it, what I came to realize is we are absolutely eternal, that this is just truly a human experience spirit is having on the earth. And it really just changed my whole outlook. So we talked a little bit prior about being spiritual warriors, and you see yourself as a spiritual warrior, and I loved how you described it. You said the battle is for clarity because we see so much fuzziness with our vision, which really took me back to how much time we focus on life trying to avoid death. Being a spiritual warrior for the battle of clarity with fuzzy vision, with all that's happening in the world today, what kind of insights would you give the people who are listening to this podcast?
I love how you phrase the vision. We wear glasses to see the world. We've been taught what the world is. The clarity comes from within. When you truly understand that you are eternal and this physicalness that you are using to get around in the physical on planet Earth is a vehicle. It's one of your major karmic journeys. It'll give you the biggest life lessons. It is a tool to teach you. We attach so heavily to our physicalness when, in fact, it is true. We are a spiritual being being having a physical existence. And we want to taste, feel, touch, and learn. That's all it is. And that's everything for this lifetime. But you can let it go freely in the knowing that you continue, and it will be even greater if you've lived a good life. It has the potential to be even greater, more of what you believe life should be if you choose to reincarnate and do it again. When that mindset comes in, that no matter what happens, you go on. No matter what happens, my brother has gone on. And know it, that without a doubt. There is so much else that just fades away. The fear of all the diseases and all the problems that we encounter in this lifetime would be made so much easier. I think of watching my parents suffer with cancer. Even though they were strong religious people, the fear was still there. And I thought, well, what's wrong with that? As I look back, they're always with me now. I allow that in my belief that life is eternal. How you get that is work at it. It's deprogramming a lot of things in your mind. That's like communication with spirit. It is an amazing thing that is different. And I get the heebie-jeebies still because it is so otherworldly. But I know it's from love and I accept it. So if these eternal beings, if there's a fear factor in you to accept eternity, I can promise you that all us eternal beings are usually at a spiritual level very kind. I mean, I think our sense of fear about whatever dead is to people also causes us not to want to be eternal. But allow the seed to be planted, that's the truth, and seek the acknowledgement of it. You don't have to say, let my father come to me and show me what he would wear on the golf course. All you need to have in your heart is, I can feel them near me, and you will. Being a medium has taught me life is eternal. There's no doubt. Once you make connection for real, that you can think anything else.
That's pretty powerful. You mentioned knowing, and I know knowing it's a spiritual gift is very positive, and at the same time, it can create us problems, especially when you can't explain to people how you know. I feel like we focus on other people more than we focus on ourselves, especially those of us who are in a life of service for this lifetime. We have this innate desire to always help fix, make it better, make it more comfortable. Part of knowing what you just shared is that there is some kind of karmic lesson for everyone to learn, and that everything happens in love, even when it may not look or feel loving. To take their experience away from them doesn't allow them a chance to really experience their lesson and grow. Do you have some thoughts on that?
I do. I'm thinking of someone I dealt with this week. I've known for years through our meetings, have watched her daughter grow up. She suffers so much for her daughter and wants her to be happy and wants all the things that good mothers want. And I have to just say to her, it's none of your business. Now, as a mother, you may just be jumping back and screaming at that comment, but I mean, help and love and protect and all that, but then step back as an observer and allow people, not only children, but parents, when you can see exactly what's going to happen and you try to help them through it, but allow them to experience what they need to experience. And I tell you something, I believe that we have chose these experiences when we were setting this life up and the lessons we needed to learn. I can't believe I chose for my brother to commit suicide because he was schizophrenic, but it sure happened. And once I believed that I was intended myself to learn from this, and once I got my brother back, meaning I made contact with him, then I see it led me to this. It led me to my greatest success and my ability to help others. So it was very meaningful. But the stepping back and allowing people to go through what they need to go through and loving them through it, not trying to save them because you can't, is such a gift to understand and to help somebody through that journey. But it's none of our business what people go through except to love and help them if needed, even those closest to us.
I agree. It's important, and it is, I think, for many of us, an ongoing process. which is also part of the lesson. I believe you also, and I don't know if you still have it, but historically you had a little shop where I'll say you sold religious items or there was some metaphysical part of it. You were sharing that on one side of the shop you had crosses and on the other side of the shop you had crystals, and that you had a customer who came in and was very confused about that. Do you want to talk a little bit about it?
Sure, I love that. It was powerful for me just watching this. The tarot were with the crystals and with the crosses. There were icons of Mary and Jesus. It was very nice to me because I represented a lot of different religious philosophies. Of course, metaphysics was the main thing for me, but all roads lead to the same place. And when she came in, I said, it's all the same thing. And that even got to her more. I said, all of these are together and they don't fight at night when I close the door. It is a blending of them. And it was astounding to me. By the way, I had Bibles left for me at that shop, and a gentleman wrote me a real nice letter and left me a Bible, and I'd had a copy of it already. And he didn't give me an address. I wanted to send it back to him and thank him, but I didn't need it. I have one, but he didn't leave an address. But just that there's no duality in God. Whatever God is, whatever this beautiful energy, whatever this small word love is trying to encapsulate, this energy is one thing, and however you make it to it is okay, as long as within this journey you're kind. I mean, that's all it takes, and treat others like you would like to be treated. But there's no battles between it. That's humans. It amazes me, the duality. There's no duality in God. It's all the same thing. She got curious. Thanks for asking about that, because she got curious and came back. She even, I think, went to one of the classes. It's all the same thing.
Wow, we're seeing a lot more people becoming more curious, or I wonder how much courage it took her to walk into your shop, or if she was aware of it before she walked in. Sometimes it's just that courage to do it, or being concerned about what judgment might be out there. I think there are a lot of people who are in the spiritual closet that they are curious. They don't feel like it's safe to talk about. I feel like those doors are starting to open. And when we have people such as yourself who are so willing and open to help people on that path, it's such a huge service that we're providing to make the world so much better. So you said in your shop you had some tarot cards. Do you use different tools, spiritual tools that are out there? And what would you consider a spiritual tool?
In the seminary that I went through, as well as headed it for a short while, we were taught tools. That was a requirement for mediumship certification and ordination as a minister. The tools were considered there. We had choices, but tarot, runes, I Ching, crystals, any kind of medium. Those are mediums. They evoke spirit within you. Or you can learn the tarot cards and learn what all the symbols mean and all the suits and all that. Joe, your previous guest, he's a master at it. You can let the symbols tell you what it is, but all the tools stimulate the connection. Numerology is another good one. I use numerology. If I was doing a session with you, I would ask for your birthday. It gives me the flavor, the vibe, the life's path, reason for reincarnation. That tells me a lot. Your personal year, what kind of vibe you're in this year, what frequency. It leaves you an open window to do the things that are particular in that kind of vibe. So yes, the tools are great. They are a medium through which spirit works with us. I remember when I first took over the Arlington Metaphysical Chapel up in Arlington, Virginia, my first large church, and I was encouraged not to use the tarot cards. I thought, oh my God, I was so nervous. Well, it went fine. She even came back, and I was able to let go of my crutch to intercede my connection with spirit. Now, when I go back home to do readings for people, some of the people don't want me to sit there and read them. It's too invasive. They tell me they want me to use the cards. They say, will you read my cards? And of course I will. That thing in between us, some people need. So the tools are very valid. Once again, it's all how you use spirit that the tools will talk to you.
That makes sense. Different people resonate with different tools. I would assume it's like you get a pull to it, and that's all just coming from spirit.
Right.
When we talked, I was really surprised. I know that you have connection in the West Virginia area, and then I really had to go back and reflect within myself why I was surprised by this part of our conversation. When you said that there was a lot of Wiccan types of practices in the area, you made a point that was so obvious to me when you said it, but at the time I hadn't thought of it. And you said most of the people who live in these areas are very connected to the earth, and they use the earth in their environment in their daily lives. So it would make sense that you have an earthbound type of spirituality that it's just really not talked about out there. You have traveled a lot. Would you say that that's not uncommon in different areas of the world, but it's just not necessarily talked about as much?
Absolutely. It's like you were talking before about not letting my mediumship out there or my theology out there. I always said I was a closet metaphysician until about the last 5 or 6 years, and I had no choice, which was good. I want to be able to attract people of all sorts. So letting them know what you do is very important. In these areas, yes, especially earthy places. I lived by the ocean most of my life, not directly on the ocean, but on the Outer Banks in North Carolina. And when you have to be in tune to the earth, when your very being, livelihood, ability to motivate the world is tied to the earth, you get to know her. You develop a relationship. Even, I'm in West Palm Beach and we have a little bit of land. It is so refreshing after moving out of the DC area to connect back with it. There's a difference. For me, I'm closer to what my feeling of God is naturally. Yes, however they practice their craft, it includes the earth somehow. I think of how witchy both of my grandmothers were because they did herbs, they did teas, dandelion greens we would go pick every time we go see grandma, mama. You have everything you need right here. This energy that developed this beautiful planet has given us everything. We choose to bastardize a lot of it, but believe me, it's all here to use. And those philosophies that are so earthbound know this, and they know the power that the earth and the sun gives is usable power to do things. I've seen people call in wind and rain and sun. It's amazing. And all those energies want to work with us. They're here for us.
So for someone who is just opening up their consciousness, the world today can be intense. And I would say that's throughout the globe. There's a lot of activity going on for a lot of different reasons. I think most of it is going to end up being extremely positive. What kind of thoughts or directions would you share with folks that are out there trying to navigate, I would say, the craziness of the world and their own inner peace at this time?
My mind is racing on that. There's so many positive ways to look at things now. I know in one of the circles, a channeled session I did, we were told there is a crack in the darkness and it is widening. And we are, meaning spirit is more available than ever before to us, making their self known. They call it the thinning of the veil, making their self more known to us so we know we have this help. I'm very positive. I'm like you are. We're not going through these extreme changes for nothing. We do have, this is a good year for, numerologically, it's a good year for things to go more kind or spiritual or loving, whatever word you want to use, but respectful. And we are told by Spirit that things are changing for the better. The light is coming through. Look for it. That's what I would say is look for it. Look for it in your life. Watch your self-language, how you talk to yourself. That's so important. You define your world by the words you use inside your head, and know that this too shall pass. Become the observer, stand back and look at it, see what it means in your life and what it's supposed to teach you. Just be good to each other. Be good to yourself first and then be good to each other. It's really very simple. And I tell you what helped me more than anything as far as philosophies and books is studying natural law, universal law. We're such amazing creatures. Wouldn't you think there are methods for us to get along on all three levels, mind, body, and spirit? And this creation energy didn't leave out spirit and mind. There are ways of knowing how to work in the world where you will attract all that you need and all that the goals you set and all that you want in this incarnation. And that's the universal laws. We're mapped out, folks. We have answers. Just got to know where to look for them.
Wow, that's awesome. And one of the really important things, and you've mentioned it a couple of times as you've spoken today, is love your neighbors as you would love yourself. And what I came to realize many decades ago, the problem with that saying is most people don't love themselves. So when you talk about be kind to yourself first, grow yourself first, love yourself first, then it'll exude out to others. So it's just what you said, it'll come from within.
Truly. I was just going to say this is the beginning of a new time. We're right where we're supposed to be.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I agree with you that this is a very significant year, not to say that some of it won't be mucky and uncomfortable, but as you also have mentioned, everything happens in love and it will have a positive outcome.
Truly.
So for people who would like to get a hold of you and work with you, how would they do that?
Email. My email is my name, all lowercase, sallyknuckles @gmail.com. You can find Spiritual Activism. Our website is spiritualactivismgroup.com.
Nice. And I will say you guys have a nice Facebook page with that also. Before we finish, I'll make sure that I have all your contact information for the listeners to get a hold of you and the spiritual activism information in our show notes. With that, I do really want to thank you for being on the show. Are there any last words or thoughts that you would like to leave?
I want to thank you for sure, and thank you for your work in this world. You're good company as a spiritual warrior. I would like to say, be kind to yourself and treat yourself nice and work on yourself, and then a lot of other things will fall in place. Just be kind.
Thank you so much, Sally. It has been a pleasure having you on the show. I look forward to talking to you in the future. And for all our listeners out there, thank you for taking time out of your day to listen to us. And remember, embrace that wild soul.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank our guests for joining us for this episode of Wild Souls Gatherings Happy Hour for the Spiritually Curious. To find out more about our guests, how to contact them, or detail on this episode, please see our show notes. You can also visit us at our website, wildsoulsgathering.com. We would love to hear from our visitors what you thought of this show, what you would like to see and hear in the future, questions you may have. Go to podinbox.com/happy hour for the spiritually curious. You can leave either a voice or traditional message for us. This is your host, Dr. Sandra Marie, sending each of you peace and love. Until we meet again, embrace your wild soul.